One of the biggest hurdles in this business is trying to help people believe that it's legit, that it's real. There's that saying, right? It's like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
How do you convince them that you're not the bad guy? You're not a scammer and you're going to put money in their pocket?
So interesting enough, when I first learned about this business, the program I went through were like, they recommended not to tell the people where the money was coming from, because then they're more likely to go around you and do it themselves. They will keep that money in like an interest-bearing account, and oftentimes they'll keep whatever interest they make off of it.
Why are state governments so desperate to stop you from giving people their own money?
A lot of governments, I mean, Texas is like this, we talk about Texas, but if someone doesn't file a claim within a certain time period, a lot of times the county governments can keep that money and use it for their interests, their projects.
So unclaimed funds many times will go in a sheet to the Treasury Department to be held for the owner. In the tax code, it says the money goes to the jurisdiction in this very unique situation.
Right, exactly.
I have Nick Fulmer with me here today. I stumbled across Nick on social media. His last name was the same as mine, and someone said, "You're talking about a tricky real estate transaction, and is Nick Fulmer your brother?" And I'm like, who's Nick Fulmer? So then I go looking through his stuff, and I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's like in my sphere. I thought it was really cool. And folks come here because they want to learn about interesting real estate deals, messy, not the ordinary, and you're knee deep in it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome, Nick. So where'd you fly in from?
Normally I'd fly in from Salt Lake, but today I flew in from Virginia.
What were you doing in Virginia?
So I was looking for a client over there.
What do you mean looking for? Me call him or?
So short story, this is crazy. So several months ago, we signed up a guy. He lost his home to foreclosure, had $500,000 left over in excess funds.
Whoa.
Signed him up, and during the process, he went dark on us. So quit responding to texts, wouldn't pick up the phone, wouldn't respond to email. And then we got his money, and we're like, but we can't get a hold of this
Dude,
guy.
I got $500,000. Where you at?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a voicemail I want to get.
Yep. Right? Anyone would like that. So
Yeah.
it's like, so I'm like, we need to find this dude so we don't have to give this money back. So I flew to Virginia to go look for him, and I found him by the grace of God in a homeless shelter.
Whoa, that's not where you expect. Dude's got $500,000 sitting in escrow, and you find him there. I think you find him at like the lake house, and he dropped his phone in the water or something.
Yeah, no, he was at his second homeless shelter, and the first one, he had his phone stolen, his computer. So that's why he couldn't get a hold of us. And we couldn't get a hold of him. And he was just off the map. But
whoa. So you found him. He's getting the money. He's going to the realtor to look for new houses this week.
Exactly.
That's crazy. Wow.
That's where I flew in from today, Virginia.
Well, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you made it safe. Nick, I found you on social media because I made a comment on somewhere, and someone said, "Hey, you're into messy real estate deals. Are you and Nick Fulmer brothers?" I'm like, who's Nick Fulmer? So I get looking through your stuff, and I see you do excess proceeds is a big part of that.
Yep.
And we've dealt with that a little bit because we've been through a lot of tax sales and been in that space. And I thought, this is super interesting. So when I was coming up with who needs to be here, you're one of the people on the list. I'm like, dude, I got to meet this guy. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Why don't you tell me, how'd you get, like, who is Nick Fulmer in a nutshell? How'd you get here? Who are you? Like, how'd you wind up in this business?
Right. Yeah. So I'm originally from a place called Pleasant Grove, Utah. It's about 30 minutes south of Salt Lake. And about 10, 11 years ago, I was going to school, working for the Forest Service. Met a girl, met her on Tinder.
Every good story starts with, I met a woman, met a girl.
And I was like, okay, I guess I can't be working at the Forest Service anymore. I better find a real job. So I went and applied, and I became a corrections officer at the Utah State Prison.
From the park to the prison.
Yep. So I was doing that, working 12-hour graveyard shifts, $16 an hour, and also was in the Army National Guard at the time. And
dude, that's a lot of public service.
Yeah, the plan was to do, 20 years at the prison, 20 years in the Army, get that pension. And
dude, you took a sharp curve out of that.
Yeah. Well, I did the math one day, dude. It was like, so if I kept at the prison and I went and just stayed through the ranks, I think I would have got like $5 or $6 grand a month as a pension. And I was like, that doesn't seem very good after 20 years, you know? So I was like, and then just a lot of experiences I had at the prison, I was like, do I really want to do this for the next 20 years?
Yeah.
And then what really kind of made me start looking into other avenues to make money and is I Googled one day, what's the average lifespan of a corrections officer? Any idea?
No clue.
59 and a half.
That sounds younger than the average lifespan of an American.
Oh, yeah, by a lot.
What the heck? Stress?
Yeah, stress, like just dealing with, that environment can really get to you.
I bet.
There's a lot of substance abuse, a lot of divorce in that
That's
industry.
coping mechanisms and lifestyle problems for the divorce.
Yep, exactly.
Dang.
So I was like, I don't know if I want to deal with this. So the nice thing about working at the prison, especially the graveyard shift, is like the first 4 hours you're busy, but then the last 8 you're kind of just sitting around. You do your counts every hour. So I started.
No one's fighting and stuff like that at night.
Typically not. Typically it's like no one's stabbing anyone. Sometimes you might have a suicide attempt, but it happens. So, but you have a lot of time on your hands. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? So I start Googling stuff. How can I make money? Somewhere I read, most millionaires are made in real estate. So I was like, okay, that sounds good. Let's check out real estate. Bought a wholesaling course, did some wholesaling deals on the side.
Okay, so you did a couple, completed them, you got the feel.
Yeah.
And you, even if it's a small deal, like $5,000, it's probably more than you're making in a whole month.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think my first deal was it was a few grand, which was a month's worth of salary.
You got like 5 or 10 hours in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Your mind's starting to change at that point.
Yep, exactly. So
And what did you're married? Did y'all get married yet?
Yeah, so we were married. By the
What's your
time-
wife thinking about about you doing that stuff?
She was, the buying the courses was kind of like, I kind of did it and asked for forgiveness later.
Well, you know what? You're not on a big budget because your income is lower. If you got to spend $300-$400, that's a significant purchase at that income level. You got to talk about that with mama.
Yeah, I should have, but I didn't.
I'm glad you didn't.
Me too. So yeah, I just kind of started, educating myself. Then I started learning about other avenues and was on email lists, and I learned about this tax overages thing. I was like, this is cool. I like this. Like, I'm helping people get money that lost a property. So I started doing that part-time, did a couple deals. And then 2017 rolls around. So at this point, I'm about 3.5 years in.
Wait, when did you leave the job?
2017. I started.
So you did this on the side for several years.
Yeah.
And then quit.
Yep. So I started at the prison in January of 2014.
Oh.
And then left in September 2017.
What made you decide to stick around that long? If when you're earning checks like this, you're encouraging.
That's a great question. There was a time where I actually promoted inside the prison and actually became a probation officer. So I actually had to go back through, they call it the LEO, Law Enforcement Officer Academy. So I became a police officer and was doing probation, which is a little bit different than a corrections officer. Instead of working inside the prison, you're working out in the community.
So you're getting some upward mobility in your career a little bit.
Yeah. So I had I promoted and I was making $20 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, okay, cool. And so that's why I stuck around, because that was not a bad gig. I'd show up at 10 a.m. and as long as you do your stuff, nobody bothers you.
Got it.
But I was still doing stuff on the side. And then 2017 rolls around, my contract's up with the Army. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to stick around. And my wife, she's like, why don't you just quit? So it was her idea.
It's her idea? It's always the guy's idea.
No, it was, I had mentioned it, but she's like, why don't you just do it? You can always go back, which is true. They always need corrections officers and police officers. So it's like, okay. So making the jump from that to real estate, that's not me. That's my wife.
Wow, that's cool.
She believed
in you.
Oh, more than I believed in myself, for sure. She is, I guess, my secret weapon to anything.
That's pretty neat.
So we left in 2017, and I wasn't super smart about it. My thought process was, okay, I've got experience in wholesaling. I've got experience in tax sale overages.
Mm-hmm.
And then I even had my real estate license at the time. I was like,
Interesting mix.
it's not going to hurt to have my license, right? And I was like, if I can do all three, surely, I mean, multiple streams of income.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I was going for that.
You're
route.
watching YouTube.
Yeah, watching YouTube, and it's like, and at this time when I left my job, we had a house. We sold that house, so we had a little bit of a cushion to live on, and we moved into the basement of my in-laws' house.
So you're like hunkering down because you don't know where it's headed. You created a little capital, pulled the equity out of your house. It's like planning.
Yeah. And the first few months, man, were tough. Like nothing really panned out. I think the first 3 or 4 months, I didn't get any deals. And it was like, I don't know if this is going to work.
What was happening different there than in the past? Because in the past, they were happening.
In the past, when I was doing wholesale, I was only doing wholesale. When I was doing the tax sale, I was only doing the tax sale. So my attention was split 3 different ways with the wholesaling, being a realtor, and the tax overages. And so I was like, okay, I've got to pick one. And I chose tax overages. And
why did you pick that one over the other two?
I just liked it a lot more. I love the research, and I really felt good about helping people get money back from their home. And it just seemed like a better fit for me. I enjoyed it more. And when I chose that and just went all in and focused on that, that's when things turned around.
Deals started popping.
Yep.
Let me back up a little bit. When you started your research, how long did it take from the first time you bought that course until your first deal? How many months was that?
I think it was about 6 months. Yeah.
So you're educating, you're learning, trying to figure it out, and then you get your first deal half a year.
Yeah.
Dude, so many people I know took half a year, and then they like create this real thing out of it. But
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It wasn't super fast, but I mean it was.
What mattered is it happened.
Yes.
That's what matters.
Yep, absolutely. So then start focusing on the overages. And here's another thing that was interesting. So when I went through that first course, I only learned about tax sale overages. But then while I was going through this, in Utah, we don't have a lot of tax sales. We have more mortgage foreclosures.
Oh, okay.
So I went to a mortgage foreclosure auction.
Your mortgages, are they deed of trust or are they judicial?
Deed of trust, yeah.
Okay. So that's like Texas. Tax sale is judicial and mortgage is non-judicial.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Utah's the same.
Do y'all have high taxes or low taxes there, generally speaking?
I think you guys have higher taxes than we do.
I think we're higher than everybody. We're like ruthless at it, which I love. But
yeah, it's not. I mean, it goes up every year like everywhere else, but most people are pretty good about paying their taxes. Like,
it must be a generally lower rate. Like Michigan is very low taxes. They have a lot of sales tax and low property tax.
Yeah.
But when it's that low, your delinquent tax rolls are usually smaller.
Yep, Utah is very much like that. So we don't have a ton of tax sales.
Got it.
And because of that, we don't have a lot of tax overages.
Oh.
We have a few, but not a ton.
So that's where you started naturally looking in your backyard.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yep. I started working in my backyard. I'm like, and I go to this foreclosure auction, and the attorney's there, and he calls out the minimum bid, and it sells for like 30 grand more than the opening bid. And I was like, a light bulb went off, and I was like, I walk up to him. I was like, hey, was the opening bid what was owed to the bank? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, it sold for 30 grand more. So what happens to that extra 30 grand? He's like, oh, it gets deposited in the court and the homeowner can claim it. And I was like, can I help a homeowner get that money for them and charge them a fee? He's like, yeah, sure.
He's like, whatever, kid, sure.
He's like, yeah, sounds good.
Wheels are turning.
Because that's what I did on the tax sale side. And I was like, okay.
Okay, so you understood on the tax sale, and the moment you're there, you're like, wait, it can happen here too.
Yep.
Okay, I missed that part. Got it.
Yep. So then I start looking through the court record, seeing, is there money in the courts? And there was money in the courts.
So you were early on where there weren't a lot of people looking around at this.
Yep.
Dude, that's nice.
Yep. And that same attorney that I talked to, he actually helped me file my first claims.
How cool is that?
Yep.
Did you call him and say, hey, I need some help? You're a lawyer and you're clearly in it. Will you do it with me?
Yeah. Yep.
How resourceful.
Yep. So we started doing that, and I started just focusing on like mortgage foreclosures, going to the auction, seeing what properties sell for more than what was owed to the bank, reaching out to the homeowner. And that first, so from like 2017 to the end of 2018, I'd done about 20 deals.
Nice.
And I think I netted like 118 grand, which was,
Dude, you're making 40 as a corrections officer, $20 an hour.
yeah.
So you got 2.5 years of income right there, or a little more.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what was hard is that 75% of that income came in like the last quarter
Oh, fuck
of
yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
So I didn't do.
But the
I
good
didn't
news
know.
is you hunkered down living in the basement there with a fam.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
lighter on the bills.
Yeah.
How did your wife take that ups and downs of the financial part?
It was hard. It was really hard because that in 2018 too, we had our first son.
Oh,
So there's
compound that risky, fearful, scary thing.
Yeah. So it was, dude, it was a rough year. It was a rough year. But once the end came, like the end of that year, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. You know, I think I can make
I can
this
do
work.
this.
Yeah. And fast forward to today, you know, I've done deals in 33 different states.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So more or less nationwide.
Yeah. Yep.
Dude, that's exciting. I love to hear that. Everybody that I talk to here, there's so much entrepreneurial spirit, and you get people that like never had a job in their life. And you got guys that were like a correctional officer. It's just the wildest, you know, spectrum across the spectrum. And there's just this like, there's this thing in people, and it's this seed, this fire, this like, you know, you're a calm, chill guy and you're working for the Park Service and the correctional officer, but there must be some independent streak in there. And there's this entrepreneurial spirit that maybe only your wife unlocked. Some people unlock it themselves, some their wives, some a bad experience.
Yeah.
But it's fun to hear what it is that unlocks it.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. I mean, it's just because when I growing up, like I liked making money. I'd mow lawns and sell stuff. But then I kind of got into, you know, we go to school, you go to high school. It's like, hey, get a career, go on that path. And I was like, I value kind of safety and consistency. But then I have this conflicting value where it's like, I also value independence. And it's like, they're kind of at odds with each other. And so it's really weird how it kind of took a 180 from like, I'm going to pursue this safe route, go get a pension, to, oh no, I'm going to start a business and just go out on my own.
The good wolf and the bad wolf, which one survives? The one you feed. Ooh.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, Nick. Why are state governments so desperate to stop you from giving people their own money back?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So a lot of governments, I mean, Texas is like this. We talk about Texas, but if someone doesn't file a claim within a certain time period, a lot of times the county governments can keep that money and use it for their interests, their projects.
So unclaimed funds many times will go in sheet to the Treasury Department to be held for the owner. In the tax code, it says the money goes to the jurisdiction in this very unique situation. Right.
Exactly.
Ooh, tricky.
So there's a conflict there, obviously, right?
Clear conflict.
The county wants to say, hey, you can't charge X or whatever to help someone get money. But on the flip side of that, they're not saying, oh, but by the way, if you don't file a claim, we're going to keep your money.
So you're not breaking any laws. You're just stopping government from quietly keeping millions. So why is your work treated like it's criminal?
I mean, it's just because there's that vested interest, right? I mean, it's an income source for government entities. And and I get it, right? Like I can get where they're coming from. If I had an income source,
If you had the conflict internally, you would side with yourself.
right? Yeah. You know, humans act in their best interest, right? And behind government is humans. So
That's right.
it's like taking money out of their accounts that they could have used for something. They don't like that.
Nick, how much money do you think governments are secretly pocketing from people who have lost their homes?
Oh, millions.
Millions.
Millions. So I've got one of my students. She works Cook County, Illinois.
Big county. Old county.
Cook County, Illinois has over $18 million alone just in that county.
In delinquent tax rolls or excess proceeds?
In excess proceeds sitting in the courts.
And do they have the same law as Texas?
They don't, but they also, here's the other thing too, a lot of jurisdictions, they will keep that money in like an interest-bearing account, and oftentimes they'll keep whatever interest they make off of that money.
I've seen like high-value real estate contracts that are like mega, like $50 million, $100 million deals where earnest money is directed to be put in an interest-bearing account and forfeited back to or returned to the owner or whatever. So that's not happening.
Some jurisdictions will keep that interest.
That's ruthless.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Laws are they're generally designed to protect people, but I've gotten involved in a little bit of political stuff in this last legislative session. And the more I look at it, the more I realize it's not as clean cut. It's not as straightforward. No. And government gets to do a lot of things that people can't or won't stop. And even if you try to stand up and get in the way, it's just such a massive, well-capitalized entity, yet I have a hard time getting in its way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoa, but you're not afraid to do that.
No.
Have you ever been in a spot where you feel like you're a target of a government entity, a tax jurisdiction?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
For sure. I mean, I've had cases where it's like it's very clear that if the entity knows about me, they're going to try to fight off, what my claim or try to get it denied or something like that. I had a judge in South Carolina who just straight up said, I'm not going to honor this contract that you have between these two people. And then he basically coached them and said, hey, come back tomorrow, fill out this form, and I'll give you your money. And you just cut this guy out.
Dude, I've seen trial court judges do illegal things, and all you can do is appeal it to the appellate courts and get a better shot or run it up to the Supreme Court. But if it's not a $1 million deal, it's not worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. And this was like, it was a $26,000 claim. And I'm just like.
What did they do? Did they go around you?
Oh, yeah. There were two cases. One of them, the guy went around me. Never saw him. The second one were two heirs, and they were like, hey, we still need your help. Like, we got to go do a probate and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I'll help you out, but as long as I get paid,
Wow. Man, that's so frustrating. That is. Gosh. What's the most extreme thing that you've ever had to do to convince someone you weren't running a scam? Because I know how this works. I call people and say, Granny died, your aunt inherited a house, you're the kiddo when Granny died or aunt died. You inherited this, you just don't know it. They think you're a scammer. What's the biggest case like that?
That's one of the biggest hurdles in this business is trying to help people believe that it's legit and that it's real.
Wow,
really? There's that saying, right? It's like, if it sounds too good to be true,
it is.
It probably is.
How do you convince them that you're not the bad guy? You're not a scammer, and you're going to put money in their pocket.
Yeah. So interesting enough, when I first learned about this business, the program I went through were like, they recommended not to tell the people where the money was coming from because then they're more likely to go around you and do it themselves. I was like, okay. So I did that in the beginning, but what I found is like that generated curiosity.
Then they don't trust you either.
Exactly. Yep. Because you're like, hey, I can help you get this money, but I can't tell you what it's from. And that didn't work out so well.
Even if someone's not a super brilliant IQ, like, dude, they can sense it. When we buy property from people, a lot of times folks don't want to be honest with them. And I tell them flat out, if this works, I'm buying it very cheap. If I can get all the problems solved and go sell it, I stand to make a lot of dollars. And if you do what I'm going to do, you can make all those dollars. But if you don't want to, I'll do it. Yeah. And they respect that, and they trust me throughout the process because I didn't lie. Yep. It sounds like that speaks to who you are as a person.
Yeah. So I changed my approach, and I was like, why don't I just tell them what it's from and just do the math with them? So I started saying, you had a property. It sold at auction, right? Here's how much it sold for. How much did you owe? Well, I owed $10,000. Okay. It sold for $50,000. So there's $40,000 sitting here.
So what do you offer to do? Split it?
Yeah. Yep. So
50-50.
yeah. So the pitch is like, here's a deal. Here's this money. I can help you get it. I'll pay all the legal fees. I'll do all the work. The only thing I need from you is just your permission. We'll sign an agreement. And if it works out, you can I'll do all the work and you can have 70% and I'll take 30.
Dude, that's fair. It's not a cheap service, but at the end of the day, a lawyer probably wouldn't want to do it for less. They don't have to deal with some lawyer that's probably impossible to deal with 40 engagement letters and meetings and all this. You go knock it out and you're reasonable. That's a fair fee.
Yeah.
In Texas, I read somewhere in the tax code that if you're going to get excess proceeds on behalf of a person, I think you can get 10% or $1,500, the lesser of the two. And I think that law is like less than 5 years old, if I remember. Is that a Texas law? Am I wrong? I swore I read that somewhere.
So in the tax code, I think it's like 34.04 or something. It says an attorney cannot charge more than $1,000.
Oh, but you're not an attorney.
But I'm not an attorney.
How did they mess that up when they were writing code?
But here's the other thing too is the paragraph underneath that says no person who's not an attorney can charge a fee, right?
So you got to do like a JV deal and have an attorney represent y'all?
Yeah. You've got to have an attorney do everything for you. And
his fee is $1,500, but you guys agree to split it because you shepherded the deal. Yeah. That's more fair.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you shrink the fees so low, great. You're going to protect this property owner from paying an extra fee or a bigger fee. But a lot of people aren't going to be found, or they're not going to find this. They're not going to do it. You're making sure the money gets in their pocket. You're sourcing them out. These lawyers are only going to wait for them to call.
Yeah.
So the lawyer might only charge $1,500. Good job. But the remainder of these people don't even get any money, and they don't care. The government didn't want the guys like you searching it out. Yep. They want it to sit, so they kind of tightened it up probably.
Yeah, I mean that's why that law is there, is to dissuade people like me from working here. Because again, if a claim isn't filed, the county gets to keep the money, right? For the statute.
That's so unfair, because I can hear it when they were lobbying to pass that bill. They were saying people are taking advantage of homeowners, are stealing from them. They're making tens of thousands of dollars on them. And the counter argument, because I bet nobody lobbied against it, because these people don't go lobby because it happens once in their life. The counter argument would have been, yeah, they're stealing. The county keeps it all otherwise, dude.
Yeah.
No one was there to have that voice.
Yep.
My gosh, that's incredible.
But things are changing, I think. There was a recent Supreme Court case not too long ago. Because there's even worse places like Minnesota, Michigan. A few years ago, if you lost a home to a tax sale and there was money left over, they wouldn't give you back your money.
What?
They just kept it. There was no procedure, no legal process for a homeowner to collect their money. So the county,
dude, that's a taking.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. So here's kind of a quick story.
What happened? How did this come to be?
Yeah, so Minnesota, there was a 94-year-old woman who had a condo, got behind on her taxes.
Oh, she owed what is she, like $200 in taxes or some crazy little amount?
It was like a few $1,000s or something. Goes to tax sale, sells for $40,000. She goes to the county and she's like, hey, you got your money. I would like what was left over. County says no. So she sues them, loses, goes to the state court of appeals, loses. It ends up at the Supreme Court.
At the state Supreme Court.
The U.S. Supreme Court.
She goes federal.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And they found that that's what you just said. It was against the takings clause, that you can't take more than what is owed. So now, since that's passed, a lot of states are changing their laws to enact procedures for homeowners to claim their funds.
That's incredible. The laws, honestly, I think most of the laws are done the best they can to make things good and safe for people. But there's just so many laws, there's so many little situations that are hard to figure out. And there's, I don't know, billions of people, so lots of events happen. Mm-hmm. And while the United States is, a well-developed nation, we haven't been really, a couple hundred years is really all we got. Yeah. Where you go to England, they have thousands and thousands of years, so their law is much more well-developed.
Yeah.
So I think we still have a lot of holes in
Oh,
our
yeah.
laws. And the way our laws work, the way I understand it is, as folks started to colonize on the East Coast, as they moved west, they would copy laws from like, I don't know, Maine, for example, was an early place. They would grab that law and copy it over here in Arkansas, and they copy in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So the same rendition that had the same loopholes and gaps would drag across the states.
Yeah.
And now we're fixing that through the Supreme Courts of the states over the next hundreds of years.
Yep.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's fascinating. So,
Yep.
so some dude that was working the Forestry Service a long time ago would have never thought he'd be familiar with the tax code of multiple states, understand federal Supreme Court case law.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So going forward a little bit further, your wife motivated you to step out and take a risk. Your first year was tough year. She might have been a little frustrated, but how does she feel about it today?
Oh, she loves it. I mean,
She bet on the right jockey.
yep. Absolutely.
That's the entrepreneur. That's the American spirit. I love to hear that. That's exciting. So those were fun questions. Nick, why don't you tell me what does this process look like? Like, how do you find a person that's in this situation? What's your conversation like? What do your agreements look like? What are your splits? How long does it take? Like, walk me through a deal.
Yeah.
Maybe one that you did recently.
Yeah, so I'll kind of go over kind of the step-by-step process real quick. Simple 5-step process, okay? So if you take notes or whatever, now's a good time. But step 1 is you create leads, okay? Create your lead list. Step 2 is...
How do they do that?
Great question. So let's break it down. So there's 4 ways to create leads. Number 1 is you can get lists online. So anyone can just Google excess funds list or Google surplus funds or Google overages. It's same name for the same thing, right? It's just different states call it different things. But just go online, Google surplus funds list, and you'll find some online. So that's one way, lists online. Some lists are not online, but you can request them, right? So Texas, great example, like I think it's Harris County. They don't have an online list, but you can email the clerk of the court and say, I'd like an excess funds list. And
Maybe a Freedom of Information Act request will get you there.
Exactly, yes. And they might charge you $10 or something, or sometimes it's free. So you can request lists. The third is my favorite way is you create your own list.
How do you do that?
You monitor the tax sales and the foreclosures. And you
Online or actually at the sale in person?
both, whichever you want. I've done both.
So that's data at the source. Like you're the record keeper.
Yes. Yeah.
And what does that consist of? You're going to the sale, you're watching a sale happen, you're writing down the address, how much it sold for, and then you go to the land records and find out, or the court records and find out who
What the
owns
debt
it,
was.
what's going on,
Yep.
and then you just skip trace them. Okay, and this happens. You did it for mortgages and tax sale. Can you do it that way for both?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So you could go to a tax sale auction. You could go to a mortgage foreclosure auction. If it's online, go online if they give you the results. So multiple ways to do it. But yeah, you're identifying those properties that sold for more than the debt owed to the bank or the county.
Got it. That's easy to figure out.
Yeah. And then the fourth way is you can purchase lists. If you can purchase that data. An example you've probably heard of Roddy's Foreclosure Service.
Oh, yeah. Here's the yellow book. It's Roddy's yellow book.
Yeah, they sell post foreclosure data.
Uh-huh.
They tell you how much a property owed or
Oh,
sold
that's
for.
simple then. You can go buy that list, put it in Excel, and boom, you got a working list like quick.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So that's step 1. You get your leads. 4 ways to do that. Step 2 is conduct research, which you already mentioned. You go to the land records. You check for who the owner was, how much debt was on the property, were there any liens, stuff like that, judgments. And then once you've done that part, then you skip trace them, get their contact info. Then step 3 is to contact them.
Ooh, tell me what that phone call looks like.
So it's like, hey, I'm Nick. I'm just calling about this property you owned on 123 Main Street. I'm sure you know it recently sold at auction. It sold for $50,000. Looks like you may be owed a refund. Can I send you some more information about how we could help you get some money back?
What is the most common response?
Some people are like, sure. Many people are like, this is a scam. There's no way.
But you must have figured out a way to get over that.
Yeah. So I like to do the math with them, and I'll ask them. I was like, did you know this property went to auction? do you remember how much you owed? And usually they do, right? It's like, okay. Well, I see that it sold for this. So you just told me that you owed this much, 10,000, but it sold for 50. So by law, that surplus, that overage should go back to the former owner, which I believe is you.
And they got to say yes. And they're also saying, yes, that's my money in the same sentence.
Right. Yeah. And then we just go back to the contact is not to get a contract. It's simply to get their email. It's like, can I send you some more information about how we can help you? Right?
And when they agree and give you the info, what kind of information do you send them by email? Do you have like a packet that's like an informational thing?
Exactly. So that leads us to step 4, which is I'll send them an email, and it follows a simple framework. Who are we? What do we do? How can we help you? Here's the next step. So it basically goes like this. So we help people recover money following a foreclosure sale. We don't charge anything up front. We only get paid if we get you results. If you would like us to help you, there is some paperwork attached to this email. Open it up, review it, and if you'd like us to help you, sign it, and that's it.
Bingo.
So what I'll do is we'll send an email with the attachment, and then we'll also send them like a DocuSign.
So if they're ready, they don't have to call you back.
Yep.
Click.
Exactly.
So that's your tool that many times can get over the skepticism.
Yeah. So I love it when people sign on, when they get that email, but it doesn't always happen that way. When they don't sign, then it's like, okay, now we go into follow-up mode. And for follow-up, what I like to do is if I can maybe screenshot a picture of the results from the sale or a court document that says, here's how much surplus is sitting here for you.
That's engaging.
Yeah.
It's personal information or it's information that they feel is personal. It's public record. This is intimate. It's unique. It's me.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's really smart.
Yeah. So I use a CRM called SalesPipe, and it's not a big CRM, but what I like about it is I can send video emails.
Oh, that's cool.
So I can record a video showing them like a sales result or a picture of the sheriff's deed or something that is third-party proof, and I can send it to them and say, here's where I got your info. Here's how I know they're surplus.
I bet that has a very high engagement rate.
Yeah. And so it's, one, they see me, so it's not just someone on a phone. Now they have a face that they can associate. And then I try to show them evidence of how much they're owed.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm amazed today. It still happens. I mean, in this 10 years, I still can't understand it, but I've learned to get over it. We talk to people, and they're like, properties sales in a week, auction's going to happen. And they're like, whatever, forget it. I got it handled. Don't care. And I'm just like, dude, there's so much money right here. I'm just going to put it in your bank account and give you some and I get some. And it's like they just don't care. And I'm thinking, are these people like psychiatric cases or like, what is it? But I know you got people that are like, whatever. And they just walked from like 50 G's just sitting there and they needed as much as anybody because they couldn't pay their bills.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? That is, you can't control them though. You just got to go to the next lead.
Dude, so that's another part of like a lot of people. So here's something I kind of want to mention is that a lot of people, when they hear about surplus funds, they're like, oh, that's got to be an easy business. It's such an easy sell. You're giving people money. Why would anyone say no?
Well, that's actually a very fair thing to say, but go ahead.
But what you just mentioned is that people don't think about is you are dealing with the folks who wouldn't cut a deal with guys like you for whatever reason.
What makes you think they're going to change direction and go to the next guy?
Some of them don't. Some of them don't, and that's why there's millions of dollars sitting here all over the country.
Technically, it should go out of the state funds into the Treasury Department under their name. I think that's the right thing to do.
In some states, it does happen. A lot of times the money sits there in the courts. Or if you've got, like Texas, if you got laws on the books that say, oh, no, county's going to keep that money, then it's like, okay, what do you do then?
Yeah, they clean that up. They'll collect interest on it. and then it'll go.
Yeah.
I had somebody tell me in Tarrant County, which is Dallas, Texas, they pulled the delinquent tax roll and added up the value, and the total value of the delinquent tax roll, not sales or overages, but delinquent tax roll, was $150 million. That means there's that much property out of service right now.
Yeah.
Let's just say, I don't know, 10% of that gets stuck in a roll somewhere or gets stuck in an escrow account. I mean, that's 15, 20 million bucks just sitting around. And it could be very easily more than that.
Yeah.
So then the county gets this interest, and I guess in the whole scheme of municipal budget, it's not that much, but they could be making $100,000 a month on interest payments.
Yeah. That's something.
Oh, that's insane. I'm starting to understand that my work is very similar to yours. I'm before, you're after, but otherwise, like so many commonalities.
You got bigger spreads, that's for sure.
Well, it's an interesting point. If it works right, yeah, that sounds like it could happen. But I've got a much harder sell. So or I think I do. I mean, I know that you deal with the same problems where people are acting stupid. But so when we first got here, you told me about a guy who had $500,000 coming to him and he just went missing. I know because you're dealing with the same situations. You're dealing with the same crazy situations that I am.
Yeah.
So tell me about one of the craziest situations that comes to mind for you. Craziest deal. The one you just told me was like up there.
Yeah, that one was pretty wild. I mean, $500,000, that's the biggest one I've ever on a single deal that I got for someone was over $900,000.
Wow. As an overage.
As an overage.
And they owed like what, $70,000 in taxes on $1 million house or something like that?
Yeah, it was that was actually a mortgage foreclosure. They owed it was a fourplex on the East Coast. And they owed like $500,000, but it sold for like 1.5 at the auction.
That's incredible. Yeah. And what was the situation of this owner who, I think East Coast investment property, more sophisticated person?
Oh yeah, I mean this guy. I mean he just got behind and couldn't catch back up, and he was living in the property. He was living in one of the units. I think he had kind of mismanaged it a little bit. You know, I think maybe his tenants weren't paying because this was post-COVID, and I think that might have played a role into it.
So he just ran. Okay, so he might not have been collecting rent, and he was afraid to boot him out.
Got behind on his mortgage and couldn't catch back up.
Oh, what a bummer.
Yeah.
So how did that work? So this guy goes to the sale, and you pulled it from a list?
Yeah, that was a list we created. So we were monitoring the foreclosures in that area. We saw that it went for sale, contacted him, and he was like, yeah, I would like some help.
Was he still living there at the time?
Yeah, in fact, he worked something out. I think he used some of the funds that we got him to work something out with the new buyer. So he continued to live there after the auction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you know what? He sucked as a landlord, but he might be a better tenant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it here. I'll stay.
But yeah, there's the crazy ones are like trying to find.
How long does it take
these
to get
people.
that in that case?
That one took about 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have to plead to the court to do that, or can you just send a letter?
Great question. It depends where you're working. So if you're working a judicial state where it's a judicial foreclosure, you're going to go through the courts.
Okay.
Even in some non-judicial states, sometimes the trustees will elect to deposit the money with the court.
Because they don't want some risk or whatever.
Exactly. They'll wash their hands of it and just say, let's give it to the court. They can deal with it.
Is there ever a time where the trustee or the court refuses, other than that time where that judge, like, in my opinion, stole from you? Is there other times where they like refuse to give it to you?
I mean, sometimes. But what I like to do is I like to use an attorney on all my deals. And so the attorney will file a claim. And
now people out there are saying attorneys are expensive. OMG, I don't have that much money. How does that work?
That's a great question. So, because you're absolutely right. Some people are like, attorney's fees, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times you can work a contingency deal with your attorney. Meaning
you got a contingency with the property owner. Lawyers got a contingency deal with you.
Yeah.
Huh. And there's collateral, the cash posted. Most attorneys don't like contingencies, but you're saying there's the cash, here I got an agreement. They feel very comfortable with that probably.
Yep.
So what would a deal like with an attorney look like?
So there's 3 ways attorneys get paid, right? There's their hourly rate, which if you've done your research and you know it's a pretty straightforward deal, you're dealing with one homeowner, it might take an attorney 4 to 6 hours to get a claim done.
Okay, so $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah. So you could do that, or you could just negotiate a flat rate with them, $2, $3, $4,000.
Oh, okay.
If it's going to be contingency, sometimes they'll want a percentage, typically like anywhere from 10 to a quarter of your profit. So that can be the most expensive, but it also eliminates your risk, right?
And you don't have to pay. Your operating expenses go down because you're not having to pay fees along the way.
Exactly. So you really can do deals with like no money out of pocket if you structure it that way.
Oh, dude, this just occurred to me. When you're buying property, as little as you can do would be $100 for earnest money or something little like that. You can do 0, but I'd never tell people to do that. Maybe 100 or a few thousand for earnest and maybe a little bit for option. But in your case, you don't need any capital. Huh.
Nope.
That makes the barriers to entry, the hurdles, so much lower. You could have 15 deals in the pipeline and hardly any money in them because you could do a contingency with the property owner. If you want, you could do a contingency with a lawyer.
Yep.
Oh, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
People need to pay attention to that. Really, because people say, I can wholesale for no money. Bullshit. You got to buy lists. You got to buy platforms and programs.
Yeah.
You got to skip trace people. You need earnest money. You got to buy an inspection sometime. Like, that ain't free.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, you still gotta. A lot of those things you're also going to have in this business too, right? Like your skip trace software.
You'll spend some bucks, but it's a lot less than it would be if you had to like put down 1% earnest money on a property or whatever, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Oh, dude, I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So I like to ask people if they've ever lost money on a deal, but in this case, how do you lose money on a deal?
You lose money on a deal if you are paying an hourly rate and the deal goes sideways.
How does the deal go sideways? Breach of contract?
So like that one I told you in South Carolina, I lost money on that. Because I was paying, because I thought it was, I was dealing with the homeowner.
Was this the first time you'd ever been shorted like that?
By a judge, yeah.
So in your mind, that could never happen. That wasn't even a reality. You didn't even expect that to be a risk. You never could account for that.
Nope.
Fudge.
So I lost about $3,000 on that one.
Well, I don't like to hear someone lost money. I hear people about flipping houses and they lose $50,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bummer, but it's not like you lost, $50,000.
No.
I'd be pissed though. A, you lost money. B, it happened in that manner.
Yeah.
And what did you do? Did you just walk away from it?
Yeah. It is what it is.
That property owner sucks.
You could try to like enforce your contract or sue them in small claims, but at the end of the day, that's time you're using that you could dedicate to just go get another deal.
You're right. So I tried. We've done specific performance a fair amount, but it's only when we're involved in a deal. We spend a lot of money fixing the problems and really going, I mean, we're deep. If someone backs out a weekend, I'm like, whatever, see you later, dog.
Yeah.
But, sometimes we're 4 months in. We spent tens of thousands of dollars on legal research, and they say ain't coming to closing table. I'm like, yeah, you are.
Right.
We bought an apartment complex 3 or 4 years ago. It's worth $2 million. Dude, contract to sell to us for $1 million.
Wow.
Yep. And he changed his mind. The appraisal district sent their notice for the next year and they brought it up to $2 million or 2.5 or something. He called me tonight, ain't closing. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, I got my appraisal district, it's worth more. I'm like, dude, I'm going to sue you, man. And he's like, I don't care. I'll pay the money. I'm not going to lose this much. And I said, okay, man, I don't want to sue you. I don't want this to happen. But I've spent a lot of money, a lot of time. I'm hiring the biggest firm in our town and I'm going to have you served within a week and I will win. This is an ironclad agreement. I've done everything. You're just simply breaching. That's your perspective, and you did it, and that's it. And I'm going to get the legal fees. Probably going to cost $150,000.
Yeah.
And that's going to come out of your end of the sale when the judge forces you to sell. I promise you, this will happen. Don't make me do it. And he just hung up on me.
Oh, man.
And it happened exactly like I said. $150,000 legal fees, 18 months came out of his proceeds, and the judge appointed a receiver to sign for him.
Wow.
Yep.
That's wild.
So, but in that was high stakes. I mean,
yeah.
If it was a deal that was a normal size, forget about it. It's not worth, just like you said, your time is better spent going to the next deal than it is fooling around with that.
Yeah.
That's a good business decision, though. A lot of people miss that. Like, I got screwed, I'm going to fix it. Maybe it's not worth it.
Dude, I mean, if you're in business long enough, it's just going to happen. Like, those things are going to happen, and you can either let it distract you from your main business, or you can just move on. Just learn what you can from it, make whatever adjustments you need to make. And, you know, I mean, if there's big money on the table, like in your case, yeah, like pursue it. But if it's like, you know, a few grand or whatever, it's like learn, move on.
Yep.
New deal. Because there's a new deal every day.
So there's some states you said that don't have a provision in the tax code for overages. Outside of those states, can you do this in every state in the United States?
Yeah. I mean, I can only say for sure that you can do
only
it.
Tested in 33.
Yeah.
Or 30, whatever.
33 with 2 or 3 more pending right now. So we're almost 35.
What causes you to go to the next state or another state?
Partners. I partner with people. A lot of my students I partner with.
How do you partner with people?
So, I mean, I teach people how to do this business. They can do it on their own. But then as part of like my program, I just say, hey, if you want to partner with me, you know, I'll partner with you. And the way it works is like they'll find the deal, maybe have a conversation. I'll handle the attorneys and the paperwork and the claim. And we'll just split it 50-50.
Oh, nice.
And
so folks will find you on social media. They'll say, I like what Nick's doing. I want to try that. And then they'll pay to get in the program. Mm-hmm. And then you'll teach them how to find it. They'll go find, bring back to you, and then they get to learn while they're doing it and get a share of the deal.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I like that.
I teach them
that widens your reach, like across a lot of states.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found problems by switching across jurisdictions because it's so different, or are you generally able to size up a new jurisdiction quickly?
Every jurisdiction is different.
That was a slow answer. You're like...
Even down to, I mean... And when I say jurisdiction, I mean state, but I even mean county too. Like every county within a state can be different.
The tax code is written for the state, but the way they manage it, interpret it, handle it, and what department covers it is like, I found out about tax sales and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? We're still in Texas.
Yeah, dude. So this is, I mean, what I found is there's what the law says, and then there's what the county does. And sometimes those aren't the same. Sometimes the counties don't abide by the rules, you know?
And the average person ain't going to do nothing about it.
No.
So how do you understand in each new place that you work because of a student, how do you figure out what the rules are and how they work?
You just go through the code, you know. If it's a tax sale, read the tax code. If it's a mortgage foreclosure, read the foreclosure code.
So I know where these are at because I'm going to do it. I do, but when someone who doesn't know where that is, where do you get the tax code or the foreclosure code? Where is that?
So I give them a list of where to go in my program, but just Google, you know, excess proceeds or tax code Kansas or tax code Texas. You're specifically going to want to look at the section of the tax code that talks about tax sales and specifically like post-sale, like, okay, what happens to the proceeds afterwards and stuff like that. Okay. So it's easy enough to find online.
So this is available online. Everybody with internet connection can find it anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I like that. The hurdle to get that is low. The part that I hate is reading like codified law is terrible.
Yeah.
Somehow they manage to make phrases and sentences so hard to understand because you have to go back and read the one before.
Yep.
It's a strange way of writing, man.
Yeah.
But the cool thing now with I got the enterprise version of ChatGPT, so $200 a month. Copy the code, dump it in there, and say, please interpret this in layman's terms.
Yes.
Bam.
Yep.
Dude, you can understand it faster and better than anybody else can now. Absolutely. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, technology has changed things for this business for sure. With AI.
So, man, that's a lot of jurisdictions. So how are you able to manage all these different places with a group of students? I guess you got some support staff and folks to kind of help coordinate this?
Kind of. I mean, so my model is it's a partnership model, which also allows me to not have like a lot of staff. So there's me and like 3 virtual assistants. And then the key to this, making it work in all those different places, is having a good attorney, whether it's an attorney.
In that location?
Yes. Yeah, that's the key. Because that's also going to help you understand the rules there. You've got someone there that can file the claims for you and make sure everything's good to go, right? So that's the key, is just having a good attorney in the jurisdiction that you're working.
That makes sense. So then when you're looking for those folks, you're probably on Google, and then you've got a pitch. So once you find them somewhere on Google, you call them, like, you know how to kind of to prime them, sort of.
Yeah, a very common question people ask is like, well, what type of attorney do you look for, right? Because what's interesting is, like, surprisingly enough, a lot of attorneys, when you tell them about this, they're like, what are you talking about? Like,
there are as many different types of attorneys as there are doctors.
Yes.
Toenail doctor, a foot doctor, a heel doctor, a knee doctor, same for real estate.
Absolutely. So for this, your best bet is to look for a foreclosure attorney, which can be hard, though, because a lot of the foreclosure attorneys, they work for the banks. So they don't want to touch this.
Oh, they don't want that conflict. They don't want to think it's a bad guy from their
Yep. So it can be hard to find an attorney.
Dude, a foreclosure. I was just asking myself, just find a real estate attorney, but then that's the brightest answer that there is foreclosure, because they know the rules. They know what's going on.
Yep.
Oh, dude, that's smart.
Yeah.
You've been around this a while.
Yeah, a little bit, a few years.
I love that.
So foreclosure attorney or foreclosure defense attorney, even better.
Oh, they're used to playing on the other side.
A close second is bankruptcy attorneys, because they see a lot of foreclosures. Because a lot of people will file bankruptcy to cancel the foreclosure.
That's interesting. I bought a mortgage note for a fraction of what it was worth the other day, 3 or 4 months ago. And I went to go foreclose last month. The dude filed bankruptcy, but apparently filed it a while back with old lender. So we got a bankruptcy attorney, filed something about vacation of something. I don't know. They got dismissed. And now we're going back to foreclosure. I didn't think about where that bankruptcy attorney can be useful in other places.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of them. Bankruptcy is its own category of law, man. That is a thing. Nick, why do you think so many people are completely unaware that they may be owed tens of thousands of dollars? And what does that say about financial education in this country?
Man, well, financial education, I think, is pretty non-existent in this country. I mean, did you take a finance class in high school? I don't remember taking a finance class in high school.
Nope. I wish they would have had it. Well, yeah. So people don't have the education on this, but why are they so unaware? They haven't been educated, but how are they so unaware that, like, they got money out there?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is, so the county or the banks, even the banks, man, they'll send a letter out, They'll say, hey.
They do?
Yeah, they'll send a notice.
Hell, half these houses, they get abandoned. Once the sale happens, they know it. They bounce.
There's the issue.
Letter goes to the house.
And they're gone.
Fudge.
And there's no forwarding address. So they never receive the notice.
And the bank got their money. They really don't give a crap. They're busy working on something else.
Yeah, they don't have a reason to go track these people down. And neither does the county.
The county has a reason to not find them, because they may be the benefactor at some point.
There you go.
Wow. Man. This is interesting to look into business. This is so similar, yet still has a lot of different caveats to ours.
Yeah. There's a lot of little nuances, and especially from state to state and county to county.
Tell me what a typical deal would look like, because you told me the terrible one that you lost money on, and then you told me this home run that was like a massive overage you saw, but what would be like a very typical one?
A very typical deal would be like, a homeowner loses property, sells for, and maybe there's 20, 40, 50 grand left over.
That's a fair amount.
Yeah. You go help them and maybe get 20, 30% on average as your commission.
I would be willing to bet the majority of foreclosures would have equity.
Yeah. Well, it depends. So going back to nuances, right? It depends where you're working. So, the coast, California, Washington, big overages because of high equity.
Okay.
Midwest properties, Ohio, Indiana, Texas even, smaller overages because the property values are not as high.
On the West Coast, you got $1 million bungalow, and in, I don't know, Ohio, that thing's worth 79 grand.
Exactly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. But, I mean, if in Ohio, if it's worth 79, it sells for 80, 75% of its value. They only owed 10 or 15 in taxes. There's still a good chunk of change
That's
there.
still a fair amount. So do a lot of people know about this yet?
About surplus funds? It's getting to be, there's definitely more awareness around it. But what's interesting, I'm surprised more people don't know about it because it's been around forever. People learn about it like, oh, this is a new thing. No, it's been around since 80s, 90s.
And you're busy talking about it out there. I mean, I see, I join your group, and I see a lot of commentary out there, and I think this is a good business model. It's on the internet, easy to access. Like, why are there not 1,000 people in line?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of turnover in this business for sure. A lot of people get started in it, but then they fall out of it.
Why do you think that is?
It's a tough business because, well, we already talked about a lot of people don't understand that you have to overcome the scam issue, the skepticism. Because, like, it's a service-based business, right? And, like, most service-based businesses, you approach someone, they know what you're selling, they know what the service is, they get it. With this one, they don't understand it. Like, the homeowner doesn't understand how they can have money left over from a foreclosure. So that's the obstacle number one. Obstacle number two is finding the people. Because, as you already mentioned too, like, foreclosure happens, they're gone. And sometimes they're gone, like off the radar, underground somewhere, like you can't find them.
Yeah, that's like some of our tax sale hill. We found a dude found him in Canada, but he lived in New Jersey and he lost a property in Texas and he was on his vacation in Canada when we caught him 2 days before the sale. It was wild. Sent him a DocuSign contract, got him to notarize through like an apostle, which I think is an attorney up there, overnight us the deed, recorded it, closing. It was freaking nuts.
Yeah, dude.
I bet you have the identical things, like wacky.
Yeah, there's so many crazy stories. I'll tell one real quick if that's cool. I had one. It was a $60,000 surplus, and
good lick.
Yeah,
Need a third, 20 grand.
Yep. Homeowner had passed away. No obituary. Neighbors have no idea who she was. Like no information like on this lady that passed away. So it's like, okay, where do we go from here? Neighbors know nothing. Skip trace software doesn't have any relatives with her listed under her. It's like there's nothing here. And I got lucky and I did a search of her name in the court records just to see maybe she had something that before she died. She didn't, but here's where it got interesting. Her case popped up in an eviction case. I was like, what is this eviction case? So,
because she had a house.
She had a house, and so what had happened is she had a boyfriend, and when she passed, boyfriend just kept living in the house until it went to foreclosure. Oh. And she had a niece, and her niece was just pissed. Like, so her niece has no standing in this property, but she files an eviction against the boyfriend.
That's gangster.
But because she did that, she put her name, her aunt's name on the file.
So there's a public record.
It was a public record.
And you got the niece.
And we called the niece. And the niece then tells us she has 6 siblings.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
What was her age, roughly?
The decedent? Mm-hmm. Probably like 70. She's in her 70s.
I noticed the older the person, the smaller the footprint they have digitally. So it's that much harder. When we're finding young people, dude, they're everywhere. I don't want a minor because you can't really deal with them easily. But, from 18 to 30, dude, if they're out there, you're going to find them digitally.
Yeah.
But the 70-year-olds,
good luck.
Dude. I was talking to a representative from a skip tracing company, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And I asked, where do you get this information? I'm not going to compete with you. Y'all are one of the biggest in the business, but I'm dying to know. And you know what they told me? They buy information. They have relationships with like the lube places where you go change your oil at your car. Think about it. When you pull up, you give them your name, your email, your address, and your phone number for the thing. They buy that data.
Really?
Yes, I was shocked.
What?
So they said, imagine all the places your information goes. We have relationships with these people. We pay for them. There's services that trade this data, so it's aggregated. So your data and my data is collected so many more places than you would ever imagine.
That's wild.
Think about
I would have
that.
never thought about that.
So we used a low value skip trace program for a while, and it would save a lot of money. So we're like, okay, this works. Well, it didn't work so well, and we started to notice our volume was getting bad because we just couldn't get a hold of people. So I asked myself why this is, and over a couple of weeks, I thought through all this, and I realized the kind of people that don't do a good job keeping up on their bills, that are behind, there's all these things, these patterns and lifestyles and behaviors that they do. But the person that does the opposite of that, like if you're looking me up, for example, I've been in the same town for 10 years, had the same office for many years, my same phone number for 15 years. I get my oil changed regularly.
Yep.
Like I go vote to register to vote. Like all these things, there's so much consistency. So I realized the kind of people we're looking for are not easy to track down. Even if they're a little younger, they're not quite as easy. Now, the good news is we've got social media and Google does a lot now.
Yeah.
So that was just an interesting thing about the information and the people, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big hurdle in the business. Going back to like, why do people drop out of this business? That's another big one is they get discouraged because they can't find these people. But the bottom line is it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work to put a deal together.
If it's going to pay you multiples of what your old day job is, don't think it's going to be easier.
Exactly.
You might have a bigger, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it ain't easier.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's a simple business model. It's simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
I like that.
And it's like a lot of people are like, oh, I couldn't get a hold of this person. All their numbers are disconnected. It's like, you can't just try looking for that person.
Look for the people around that person.
Yes. Go call all of their relatives. Go call all of their neighbors, any friend, associate listed under that person.
Yep.
And if you're not willing to do that, it's going to be real tough to put a deal together.
Go back to that old job.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, through a financial, this gal that offers financial services here, she knows our business, and she was chatting. She said, I was telling her about one of our stories because everybody loves the stories.
Yeah.
And she said, you need to call this person. He was a retired FBI agent, him and his wife. She was a researcher at the Bureau. He was a field agent. They just retired, and they started a private investigative firm.
Nice.
So we started using them, and it's remarkable. They don't have a lot of the tools they used to have back there at the agency.
Yeah.
But, man, the way they know to make associations and look and surveillance, like now sometimes we have surveillance. If we think a person lives somewhere but don't know and it's a high-value deal, they'll set up some cameras across the road. So we get to watch who's coming and going and start to like figure out traffic patterns and who the people are. And those are much more about high value cases, but the information is out there and the people are there if you're just, willing to do the work and find the resources.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't do it as much now. I mean, obviously I had to do it just the other day looking for that guy with $500,000. Like,
yeah. How'd you find this dude? How'd you find him at a homeless shelter?
So I couldn't have done it without my partners. My partners had called like multiple extended stay motels looking for him.
They thought he might be on the street or something. Then.
Yeah. And then what I did is I just kind of just Googled like, okay, homeless shelter in the area surrounding his house. And there was only like 4. So that narrowed it down a little bit. But I just kind of starred the one that was closest to him. It was 4 miles away from his house. That's the one he was at.
Whoa.
And that kind of I guess, going back to your private investigator, like you don't have to hire a PI to find these people. You can do some of this work yourself. A lot of it can be done online with technology.
Oh, it's remarkable. It's available.
Yeah. But sometimes you got to get out in the field, Sometimes you got to do boots on the ground, knock some doors, talk to some people, talk to neighbors are a great source of information. And I've done that, man. Like, I've signed people in their garages while they're moving out of the house. It's like
I'm loving watching your face line up. I know that people are watching this. When you're talking about the Forestry Service, it wasn't as fun. Now you're in the heat of it. It's exciting. This is fun.
Yeah.
I love this stuff.
Forest Service is awesome, man. But I mean, that's when I promoted.
Yeah, but this is exciting. That wasn't exciting. This is exciting.
Yeah. When I was a probation officer, part of what we would do is hunt down fugitives. So
really? So you had a little background in this.
Yeah. So that skill of like looking for people, that translates over to this business.
I love that. Man, this is cool, dude. This has been fun. So, Nick, I got a question for you. If you were to go back and talk to the Nick of 10 years ago, what does the Nick today tell the 10-year younger Nick?
Focus. Just choose the one niche and stick to it. And don't stop. So that's I think that was also like, man, it's so crazy. Like when you look back on your journey, especially my journey, I'm like, there were so many pivotal moments where if like I had made a different decision, it would have changed the entire trajectory.
Could totally gone off track so many times.
Yeah. Like had I not made the decision to go all in on overages, what would have happened?
Who knows?
It's scary to think about. So I would have said, don't quit chasing the shiny object and just focus. Pick one and focus.
I like that.
And I get it too, man. Like it's hard because you don't know any better, especially if you don't have like a business background or anything, but it's like,
yeah, you're in the unknown, man.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we're humans, right? So we're looking for the path of least resistance. It doesn't exist.
Just go do some
It
work.
doesn't exist, man. Like just focus on one and just become really good at it. Be the best you can be at it. And even if you're not the best, like you
probably do okay.
You don't have to be the best to make a good living.
That's right. That's a good message.
Like I'm okay with not being the biggest guy. I'm okay with not being the biggest fish in the pond.
Yeah. Every time I read about these New York like real estate guys, I mean, they're doing $100 million deals like every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not that, but we're doing good and we're happy. So,
Yeah.
there are a lot of folks listening that want to do this or kind of easing their way towards it. What do you tell those folks?
Don't do what I did.
What does that mean?
I mean, you don't have to go all in to succeed in this. Like you could start part-time, do a couple deals a year and do very well for yourself. Like you don't have to make it your full-time gig if you don't want to. And you don't have to make it your full-time gig to make good money at it. And I don't recommend folks to jump all in because when you're dealing with that stress and pressure, like it's hard to make good decisions. And so I just say, start part-time. And if you really like it, cool. Then you can transition, but don't just go gung ho and like, cause here's the thing, man, like with social media, we hear about all these rag to riches stories and I quit my job and made $1 million. But for every successful story, there's also the opposite story where someone did that and they didn't make it. But you don't hear about it. Those are the stories
you don't hear about.
You don't hear about it, but they're out there. They exist.
Wow.
So I guess that would be my advice is just get a couple deals under your belt and then determine if you like it or not.
Do.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good advice. You do a really good job of making something that can probably be really complicated sound easy to assimilate and easy to understand. And I think that message is encouraging because when I hear it and I know other people hear it, they say, I think Nick did a good job of explaining it. And if I want to go try some of that, I could probably go after that.
Yeah.
So good job. If folks are out there and they want to get a hold of you, they want to learn from you, maybe go do some deals with you, do those 2 deals a year with you in the 34th state now.
Yeah.
How do they find Nick?
So you can just Google me, Google my name. I'm on YouTube.
Nick Fuller, the last name spelled just like, Fulmer.
Fulmer, yep.
Last name spelled just like mine.
Yep.
Nick.
Yep. We're probably related somehow. I don't know, but probably.
So Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah. If you want to go through like a free training about surplus funds, just go to overagesyndicate.com.
Overagesyndicate.com.
Yep.
Sweet.
My YouTube channel has my name and also Overage Syndicate. So.
Perfect. Nick, this has been fun. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
My commitment to you is to deliver the most interesting, messy, and profitable real estate deals on earth. And in exchange for that, I only ask that you subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend who can benefit.